I was born in a Zoroastrian family and was named Naosherwan, but Meher Baba called me by a variety of names. He called me Nasli, he called me Naosher, then he would at times call me the tabla player, because once in my childhood I played tabla in his presence, and then later on he started calling me as the glow, with a gesture of the hands, and Iraj would immediately interpret that as Naosherwan. Well, as I was mentioning earlier, I had spoken about the time when Baba had called me over to him and declared that he was God in human form and that I should go out and tell the world that he was God in human form. And it was some sort of a scepter he gave me. It was an inheritance. And ever since this conviction grew on and still further, when I decided to start a magazine. Of course, initially it was the Spark, but the registrar of newspapers wouldn't accept it because it was a communist magazine, although it was defunct. So I approached Baba and said that the Spark couldn't be accepted as a title. And then among the many titles, Baba approved of the Glow. And the first issue, Baba gave a beautiful message for the Glow. And of course, this is not the first issue, but this is the issue of May 1971. And the Glow continued publication for quite some time. Baba continued giving messages and at times guiding how it should be printed and how the whole thing should work out. Of course, while printing the Glow, publishing and editing the Glow, I was also studying for my graduate studies. Now, while I was studying for my graduation, it was just about, I remember, 10 days before my exams, I had this tremendous experience of Baba love. I felt like a container. And, when a container, say for instance, if it's a cup and it's filled with water or with milk, and later on it overflows. Similarly, I felt like a container with immense amount of love in it. And when anything overflows, the entire area becomes messy. And when this love started to overflow, I felt that my life started becoming messy, and in the sense that I decided to renounce the world, leave my parents, leave my little part-time job that I was doing, discontinue my studies, and go to Meherazad and live with Baba. And that's exactly what I wrote to Baba that very day, that next morning he would be seeing me in Meherazad, whether he liked me or not. Of course, I hadn't mentioned it to anyone, and I had got a photograph taken to leave it behind with my parents and said goodbye to everyone. But just before nightfall, a telegram came from Baba. It was an express telegram, and it said, "Renounce nothing except your present attitude." And this was a commandment from Baba, and soon after, about 5 other telegrams came and 10 letters came, and Baba said a lot of things in them. He talked about renunciation. He said that renunciation is important for aspirants, but those who come in contact and close to the avatar, it has no significance. And anything done without the instruction of the avatar is only pleasing oneself and doing a service for oneself, not for the avatar. Anything that is done when the master commands you to do, that is real service and that is real strength. And then once again I wrote asking whether I could fast and keep silence, and Baba said the same thing in different words, and confirmed what he'd earlier said, that he would one day make me see him as he really was. He asked me not to worry and be happy in his love and faith. Then soon after, when I had once mentioned to him about giving, some people had come, some spiritual masters had come to Dehradun, and I had given them some copies of the Glow and talked to them. Baba immediately sent me a message and said, "Do not go to any Tom, Dick or Harry of a spiritual master. Beware of spiritual stunts by spiritual clowns." And that is his message not only for me, but for the entire world. as far as the reality, the distinguishing between the false and the true master is concerned. That was one of the times when once again Baba called me over, and then we had, of course, a big discussion on various aspects of the glow and about my job and about various things in life. While I was continuing in college, I had another experience. That was in relationship to a few friends of mine. It so happened that I had gone for I was in the army for about 3 years, and we had gone to one of these camps. And there was one boy who continually talked against Baba. Of course, I kept on explaining to him whatever he had doubts and problems. But one day he started calling out invectives to Baba and calling them real bad names and bad words. And we were just preparing to go for the morning parade. And suddenly what happened was a certain sort of fanaticism. I immediately jumped up and caught this boy's throat and was about to throttle him, when suddenly all my friends jumped on me and knocked me out, and this sort of and stopped me from taking any action. This incident disturbed me tremendously. I just wasn't the same again, and I immediately wrote to Baba asking his forgiveness for this act of mine, and Baba very sweetly wrote to me saying that I must always restrain myself despite opposition or despite acceptance. He was always the same ancient one, and that I should not be worked up by any such sort of antagonism. As we grew up, both my sister and myself, in the guidance and help and the love and compassion of Baba, there were times when we often felt depressed, and Baba was there to give us help and guidance, and forever the touch was always with us. The feeling was always there, and Baba kept on emphasizing to look inwards. In fact, when we were most worried about Baba's health, and I was most worried about Baba's health, I wrote to Baba saying that I was worried about his health, and that if I could take some of his suffering. And Baba wrote back saying that I suffer for mankind, and I give a minuscule part of my suffering to my lovers. I expect them to bear with me this suffering. Jesus was crucified only once. I am crucified each moment of my life. And that was the tremendous suffering that Baba underwent. To give you a glimpse of this, I would now like to talk about 40 days before Baba dropped his body. Baba had called me over, and he had a hectic morning in the sense that a couple had been married and it was Meher's birthday, and he called me in. There were a few people sitting in, and Baba asked me to embrace him and kiss him. And he as soon as I entered, Baba did. Irach immediately said, Baba says, my time has come. And I said, yes, Baba. Of course, I didn't think of asking him what time had come, whether the breaking of his silence or his manifestation or his dropping of the body. I didn't ask him any questions. And then Baba made me sit down on the bed, and Irach was pressing his leg, and his left leg. And Baba asked Irach to show me Baba's left leg. And I touched his thigh, and I felt as if I was touching the wall. The skin just wouldn't move. It was absolutely tight muscle. It was stone. And Baba told me that he had been pounding his left hand on his left thigh continually for months at end. And that, he explained, was in order to keep his link with the gross body. Otherwise, he would have given up his body much earlier. And this was despite the fact that he had been suffering. And he had undergone the suffering continually for months at end. Despite the fact that his Mandali and others, his doctors had told him not to undergo his universal work so much strenuously. And that's, and later on Baba said that I have completed my work 100%. To give you a little instance about how practical Baba was and how he meant every word that he said. It was while he was, we were talking about, I had been selected in 3 different jobs and I had to select one job. So, and that was to work in the Times of India. And Baba said that, do you like to work in the press? And since I had experience in writing and so on, I said, yes, Baba. And he asked others what their opinion was. And then Baba did something with his fingers, which Erich interpreted as, don't leave the Times. Baba said, no. Then once again, Baba did something else, and Erich said something else like, leave the Times. Baba said, no. And somebody else interpreted it as going away or discontinuing. Several words were being uttered, and Baba kept on saying, no, no. And then ultimately, Erich said, vacillate. Because Baba referred to the mind as well, and he said, vacillate with his fingers. And immediately, the moment Erich said vacillate, Baba said, yes, that's the word. So I just want to tell you all that Baba was very particular about each word that he uttered, as to how much emphasis and what meaning there was behind it. And before I left the place, I was with him for quite some time when we discussed various things. And then I embraced Baba and kissed him, and Baba said that you're one of the very few people, you're one of the very few who have kissed and embraced me for a very long time. I will make you realize God consciousness one day if you obey and love me till the very end. And then before leaving the room, again he called me back and said, my time has come. That's what Baba said. And that was my last meeting with Baba. Of course, despite the fact that Baba dropped his body, of course, when Baba dropped his body, I got to know it in the morning, and I straight away went down to Meherazad, and I was there, and Erich very graciously allowed me to keep the torch in a hand while I was to look after Baba's body the whole night. I was alone in the tomb for the whole night. There were just about 3 people outside the tomb, and some villagers sitting there, and as people kept on coming, I kept on shining the torch at Baba's face. While I saw Baba's face lying down in the tomb, in the crypt, and his entire body covered, while Erich came in and he asked me to swap at Baba's face and remove the ice from the sides and to adjust the ice which was placed there, I had this feeling of complete freshness. When I touched Baba's face, I felt as if I was touching a strong, powerful human being who could not die. It was unbelievable that Baba was lying there. He had dropped his physical body. And while I sat, every time flashing the torch at his face in the darkness, it seemed as if Baba's entire body rose up again and again, and that his eyes kept on flickering. It was just some sort of a feeling which I experienced. It's of course indescribable, the feeling, but that was how I felt when looking at Baba's face continually for hours at end. And of course, this was when Baba dropped his body, but there is one little incident I'd like to mention about the time when I met Baba in 1967. It was the most incredible experience and most wonderful which I've ever had. And I have never been able to duplicate this experience again. This so happened that I had met Baba in the morning when he had talked about his silence and about his breaking of the silence and his manifestation and various other things. It was at that time that in the evening the Pune group was supposed to be there, and there were a large number of people. My father was in this group, and I sat outside since Baba had not called me to attend the meeting, and I was not supposed to attend it. So Baba sent out Erich and said, is there anybody sitting outside? And Erich said, yes, Naosherwan is sitting outside. So I was called in, and I sat near Baba's feet, and I had a very strong urge at that time of Baba's love and feeling. And I sat, and then the whole meeting was over, and then Baba started with the Aarti, and everybody started with the Aarti and the praying the Aarti. And I normally sing the Aarti with them. But as I started the first line of the Aarti, I burst into uncontrollable sobs. And someone had mentioned to me earlier, I don't know whether it was one of the Mandali, that the tears of love are ice cold and the tears of passion are warm. As I sat there in tears, with uncontrollable tears, I felt as if drops from the Frigidaire were dropping on my hand. I instantly realized. And then immediately Baba asked me, "What's the matter? What are you thinking?" And my mind was blank. I said, I just couldn't answer. And Baba continued with the Aarti. But that was the moment which I can only say was a timeless moment, when I experienced complete bliss. Later on I have often felt, I've sobbed uncontrollably when Baba was in seclusion and we were not allowed to come and see him. And we had this strong feeling of being with Baba. And I would cry at that moment, but the tears were always warm. I could never get the tears of pure love again. Maybe one day I will, when Baba makes me see him as he really is. And this brings me to the end of my little story in my life and love with Baba. Of course, the story is a continuity. As Baba said, the new life was one of continuity. And there were a lot of little phases, little incidents, little things that did happen and did go on in my 25 years, or rather my 24 years with Baba. Jai Baba. In the same year, I had, when I had met Baba early in the morning, prior to the experience I've already narrated, it was in the morning that Baba asked me about my health and whether I took care of my health. And Baba knew that I wasn't keeping very good health and that I had this lung trouble. And Baba asked me to take care of my health. He gave me remedies about taking care of my health. He gave me prasad by way of money to go to very good doctors and get myself treated. And it was during while all this conversation was going on and some people later on came and joined us, there was this relative of Baba who was sitting in quietly, just soaking himself with Baba's love. And I was sitting way back behind the group. Only one thing I was trying to see right into Baba's eyes. I kept on looking into Baba's eyes, but there was never an opportunity when Baba looked straight into my eyes. He just kept on moving his eyes all the time. And I felt something very strange, because there were people who have always accused him of hypnotism, some sort of a hypnotism, which is very funny. And this uncle of Baba raised his hand and said, "Baba, I have a question to ask." And he says, "What's the question?" And he says, "Baba, I understand from what you say that you're never going to break your silence." And Baba said, "Who told you that? I have always been saying that I will break my silence. I will utter the word. And when I utter the word, the entire universe, the entire humanity, mankind will undergo a metamorphosis, will undergo a change." And of course, I believe that when Baba dropped his body, he broke his silence. And today what you see, large number of people coming to him, is the result of his tremendous manifestation. And that was one very strong experience of listening to Baba from his very mouth saying that he would break his silence. And today, this wonderful feeling of Baba love that has pervaded the entire universe, although he has dropped his physical body, he's dropped his gross body, but he's embraced the universal body and pervaded the entire universe.